Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 2014 Emma Goldman Clinic's Choice event. I'm Jody Fredericks, former staff member and current member of the Board of Directors, and your MC for the evening, along with our current board chair, Jessica Morton. We come together each year to take a moment out of our busy lives to remember the important U.S. Supreme Court decision that allowed women to regain some basic control over their lives. There's much to celebrate, and there is much to continue fighting for. Many of us thought the fight ended 41 years ago with the passage of Roe. The reality is that the fight only began in 1973. Let's not ignore the challenges that we know are ahead, but tonight, let's choose to celebrate.
And there are many things to celebrate. There are signs on the horizon that there is a potential for change. So as we celebrate 41 years of Roe this evening, let's choose to uplift and reflect on the relationships we have with so many of you here. Instead of focusing on the fight ahead, let's choose to celebrate.
Although there are many glitches and false starts with the Affordable Health Care Act, let's celebrate that as of January 1st, 2014, right, millions of women gained access to affordable health care.
In spite of the law passed last year that placed Governor Branstad as the gatekeeper for women on Medicaid seeking an abortion, we can celebrate because this is an election year, and his term and his time is up.
For sure. In 2013, 22 states enacted 70 provisions aimed at curbing access to abortion. The number of restrictions to abortion access introduced between 2011 and 2013 was more than had been introduced in the last decade. We should celebrate the introduction of the Women's Health and Protection Act in Congress. This bill would prohibit states from passing so-called targeted regulation of abortion providers laws. These TRAP laws impose strict and cost-prohibitive building standards on abortion clinics. They require women seeking abortions to have ultrasounds, and they create other barriers to abortion access.
This is the first proactive legislation introduced at the federal level since 1994. A wonderful reason to celebrate.
Indeed. But the biggest reason to celebrate is that the Emma Goldman Clinic is in the midst of a year-long party, a grand celebration of our 40th anniversary. We are celebrating the monumental feat that we're still here. Emma was one of the very first and remains one of the very few independently owned and operated feminist healthcare clinics that provide abortions in the nation.
So tonight we choose to celebrate. We choose to put the fight aside for a moment and to celebrate and reflect on our relationships with you, our friends and supporters. We hope to hear your stories this evening. There are many incredible and rich stories in this room of how we came to be and why we remain committed friends of the Emma Goldman Clinic.
So I want to start the evening by directing our deepest appreciation toward the Emma Goldman Clinic staff and volunteers. It's not every day that you run into folks who are willing to do the work that they do. They don't do it for the money or the prestige, and we know they don't do it for the glamour because there isn't any. But despite the protests, the hate mail, the threatening phone calls, and the semi-annual invasion trainings, the job has its rewards. Everyone does the job for their own reasons, but ultimately, it's because they are caring, brave people, and we are so grateful for their work, providing quality, non-judgmental services for women and men every day.
Will the staff, volunteers, physicians, and practicum students please stand so we can express our appreciation? Will you also please stand if you have ever worked at or volunteered at the Emma Goldman Clinic?
So that's like everybody. I would also like to recognize the commitment to women's rights, healthcare, and governance the Emma Goldman Clinic Board of Directors offers. Will the Board of Directors please stand so we can all thank you for your service? And will you also please stand if you've ever served on the board? Come on. Yay.
I want to again remind everyone to continue bidding on the silent auction items and get ready for the live auction that will start later. In 1963, Betty Friedan published The Feminine Mystique, and President John F. Kennedy's Presidential Commission on the Status of Women released its report on gender inequality. Both spoke to the discontent of many women and led to the formation of many local, state, and federal government women's groups, as well as many independent feminist organizations and women-owned businesses.
After all, there have always been enterprising women in business since the beginning of time. In 1972, women owned 4% of the American businesses, and by 1991, that figure had climbed to 38%. The Emma Goldman Clinic has had a long-term relationship with many of the local businesses and organizations formed in our community in the 1970s and 80s. We want to take a moment to recognize and acknowledge 3 of those businesses.
So here's Jennifer Price, co-director of the Emma Goldman Clinic, to do just that.
Good evening. And I do have to say, as an employee of the Emma Goldman Clinic, I do feel pretty glamorous this evening. And so that's great. And I am thrilled to present our honorees this evening. All have been pioneers in their own way. At the Emma Goldman Clinic, we understand the rewards and challenges of being an owner of a small and local business. We're very proud to support these women and recognize their contributions as business owners and leaders in our community. Our first honoree, Marlene Perrin. Thank you, Marlene. Marlene is owner of Taxes Plus. Marlene has been a steadfast supporter of the Emma Goldman Clinic since its beginning. In fact, she covered the early days of the clinic as a reporter. She wrote about the first meetings of the founders who were exploring this idea of self-help healthcare. Had to be an interesting meeting to attend as they were going through, which is great. And Marlene has told us she was always impressed with the number of older women who were strong supporters and found it interesting since they were past their childbearing age. Now she says she's one of those older women and very proud to still be a supporter. Marlene started her own tax service, Taxes Plus, 12 years ago. She was retired when she took the risk of starting her own business. Marlene said one of the best benefits of being your own boss is that you can publicly support the businesses that you personally support. Marlene has been a constant presence at our Choice event as well as a business sponsor. In fact, one year, due to some staff turnover, we forgot to ask her to sponsor, and she let us know about it, which is terrific support, and we'll never forget again. For sure. Thank you, Marlene, for your years of support and for setting a great example for all of us that we can follow our dreams and succeed at any phase of our life. Thank you. Our next honoree is Sue Rydell, owner of Houseworks, who unfortunately was not able to be with us tonight. So if y'all are looking around for her, so we'll accept her award. Nearly 25 years ago, Sue decided to turn her hobby of consignment store shopping into a career. She opened a tiny shop and has had the pleasure of seeing her business grow exponentially since then. We're able to learn from Sue about being resilient as a business as she has faced a large obstacle And Houseworks, as we know, experienced devastating damage in the 2008 flooding. And yet, she was able to persevere and do what needed to be done to remain a thriving and successful business. Sue believes that philanthropy is just a part of who she is as a business owner and Houseworks as a business. So we thank Sue for her commitment and philanthropy and for being a wonderful example of overcoming obstacles. So we'll... Okay. And we'll be sure to get her award to her. Okay, thank you. Our final nominee is very special to us. Ginny Blair, owner of Rosewater Plumbers. Ginny's career began when she met a nice plumber who offered to teach her plumbing and made it fun. This allowed her the self-employment and freedom she desired. Ginny wanted to choose a great name for her new business, similar to Bidet Plumbers, of which she was a part for several years, and she did. For those of you who don't know, rosewater is a common fragrance, sometimes called toilet water, right? So both bidet and rosewater are intended as names that would tip potential customers off that they're women-owned businesses and a bit out of the ordinary. Ginny started a relationship with the Emma Goldman Clinic before the clinic actually existed. She worked as a volunteer with the Abortion Referral Service, operating out of the Women's Center. And Ginny is a founding mother of the Emma Goldman Clinic. Ginny helped with the rehab of the original building on North Dodge Street. And she stayed on for a time as a collective clinic member. Ginny has been working as a plumber since 1977 and has remained the clinic's primary plumber, performing work at all three buildings, most often as a donation. Thank you, Ginny, for your leadership, passion, and support for 40 years.
Financial concerns can be an important factor for a woman who is faced with an unintended pregnancy. And financial accessibility can be a barrier for a woman who has to choose to have an abortion.
The generosity of our community business partners and sponsors make it possible for 100% of your ticket price to go directly toward the DePross Access Fund. You will find a listing of the business sponsors in your program. Please show your appreciation by giving them your business, and please thank them for their support of the Emma Goldman Clinic.
The DePross Access Fund allows us to subsidize abortion services for women living in lower incomes. Our fund is named after Dr. Charles DePross, who has been a strong and consistent supporter of the Emma Goldman Clinic and of the right of women to choose to control their own fertility. Dr. DePross has played a very important role in the feminist healthcare movement and in the Emma Goldman Clinic, her story. Please join me in showing Dr. DePross our appreciation. We are thrilled that on this special occasion, we have with us Dr. Dick Winters, Emma's first doctor to provide abortions. Please give him a hand.
I worked at the clinic for about 9 years until I moved over to the Dubuque Street address, and 715 was sort of my home for several years. 715 North Dodge. It's and then a little house next to it. But just if you go by there sometime, just look up and you see above the front porch, there's a couple of rooms, and that was the whole deal right there. And anyway, I want to just say one thing about the beginnings, and that was there was a lot more opposition than there was support. And there was an occasion where the State Board of Medical Examiners was on the clinic's trail and mine, and they were trying to restrict what could be done there. And, well, actually, the three options were we'll suspend your license for 6 months, or we'll revoke it, or we'll put you on probation, basically. Three options and a whole bunch of questions. Well, this is just sort of interesting. I'd run for city council in '71, and I got to know the county attorney. And so the State Board of Medical Examiners had their questionnaires and all that, and I answered all the questions. And then they referred it to the county attorney for taking further action to try and close the clinic down. And so it was Carl Getz. And Carl called me up and he says, "Dick, you doing anything wrong there?" I says, "No." He says, "I didn't think so."
That's awesome. We know that there are many of you in the room tonight with stories to share. Many of you have been with us since the very beginning and can share your reflections of what it was like in the 1970s and 80s on North Dodge Street, as Dr. Winters was just referring. And many of you remember the growing pains that went along with changing from a collective to a more traditional business model. And then even more of you have been with us as we've gone through these hard economic times and we've had to downsize and learn to be even more efficient than we already were. So tonight we're giving you the opportunity to share your stories with friends. Come on up, tell us your stories. Don't be shy, because we want to hear them.
Good evening, my name's Karen Cubby, and I have a story that starts off kind of scary, but the full story really epitomizes everything about the Emma Goldman Clinic and the Emma way, as we like to say. So one day I was riding my bike to work, and I get near the front door, and there was a guy in a long black coat. And he is running full speed to the door and slamming his body against the front door. So Jennifer was really mad at me, but I did not follow security protocols. And instead of going away and calling 911, I spoke to this man and I said, "What's wrong? Can I help you?" Instead of, "What the hell are you doing? We just got CDBG money for that handicap accessible door and you're tearing that 4,000 door apart. Leave it alone." So he said, "There are 4 gay guys inside and I stole my glasses." And I said, "Why don't you come with me? We'll go by the sidewalk, we'll figure this out, we'll call 911 together, I'll wait with you. And if someone's inside, the alarm will go off if they're not supposed to be in there." So obviously this person was having some kind of psychotic episode. And as I was talking to him, one of the neighbors who did a lot of yard work for us as a volunteer came over and said, "I've called 911, they're on their way." At the same time, the guy from Handy Mart comes over and says, "I saw what was happening, I've called 911. So we have been protected by our neighbors because we are good neighbors and our neighbors are good to us. So then as I'm talking to this guy, he runs up the stairway, breaks a window and gets inside. I do not know if there's an employee inside the upstairs, if someone has already come to work. So I'm scared for someone's safety. I'm also scared because we have our spring auction. There's a lot of breakables up in room J and that he might be destroying. So then the police come rather quickly, including the new police chief. We've never had a police chief come for a 911 call, but he's kind of new, and I was very happy to see that he thought it was important enough to come see what was happening at the clinic. They talked this guy out of the clinic in less than 5 minutes. He had hurt himself, but he had not destroyed anything in the clinic. I was worried about computers as well. And we had to make some decisions about what we were going to ask the police to do. Oh, and while we're waiting for all this to happen, clinic workers are coming for the day. And community members have driven by and seen clinic workers sitting outside in the parking lot. We were told to wait outside, and they were bringing bomb-sniffing dogs to check out the clinic, make sure it was okay for us to go in. And people are bringing us bagels and cream cheese and coffee as we're sitting outside. So the community has seen what's going on and is protecting and caring for us as we are caring for the community. So nothing was broken inside, and we had to make a decision legally about how we were going to approach this. And some clinic workers really wanted us to put the hammer down on this guy. And what we decided at the clinic was that this person was having a mental health issue, and he had supportive family in the community that could help him, and that as long as the court said that he would be served by community-based services with the support of his family, that we would not want further charges to be pressed. But if he did it again, we would. And there's not been an issue with this person. So even though this was a scary moment, it epitomizes how integrated the Emma Goldman Clinic is in our community.
Okay, my name's Susanna. I was looking to see how to get up here. It's pretty nice, so anyone can easily get up here. Let's see. I just started working at the clinic again in June, and I worked there 10 years ago for about 8 years, and then I worked at DVIP. I remember the first day I worked, it was a coming out day, which, you know, being queer was just really nice for me. So at lunchtime, I could go down to that, and people were supportive there. I had an abortion in Michigan, and when I first moved to Iowa City, I was glad to hear that there were massages there, because I was wondering, you know, I hadn't really thought about the procedure I had in a long time, and it gave me the opportunity to think about it with the massage there. And then later I applied to work there. And I was just always been amazed how the stories are so varied. I remember one client that I had. She was the last client of the day, and she had a child with her and no child care. And so during the advocacy session, this little guy was placing crayons all along the edges of the room. And it was just so sweet and ceremonial even. And just to see how the staff was willing to accommodate, you know, whoever came through the door. And then during the procedure, I could hear the little guy upstairs with staff taking care of him during the procedure. So it's just amazing to see how people are willing to step up and just do what needs to be done. As someone who was away for a while, I was feeling kind of bad that I hadn't gotten more involved as seeing what's needed at the clinic right now. And I think there's really a lot of outreach that needs to happen. And for every person that's sitting here, I know there's a story and a place in our community where just maybe we could reach out a little bit more and let people know about the alternative that they have for their health care, because we all know it's good. So thanks.
One of the things that's happened at the clinic through the years, brought about by concerns of who might access the clinic inappropriately, an alarm system was installed in the clinic. And one time I was in the upstairs meeting room with a group of people. We were meeting with the woman who was the next night to present at the annual banquet. And everybody left the clinic through the upstairs access, and I went downstairs to leave the clinic and found out I couldn't get out. So I went upstairs, and there wasn't anybody there. And I couldn't get out of upstairs. And I'm probably one of the few people in Iowa City who's been locked in to the Emma Goldman Clinic. All the rest of you may have been locked out, but I got locked in. I called the clinic number from inside, and I got an answering service. And I explained my problem to the person on the answering service, and she said, well, let me see what I can do. So apparently she contacted whoever from the clinic was on call that night. And as a result, somebody came by the clinic, unlocked the clinic, and let me out. But I had some concerns about whether I was really going to get out. But fortunately, it turned out all right. But it showed the security was working very, very well.
Okay, I've never done this before, and I've been here all the time, but I just have to tell this one story about Dr. DePross. We're going to go back to 1981 to the special gynecology clinic. A young woman walks in for a suction procedure at about 8 to 9 weeks, and we realize, and this is mid-December 1981. As we're doing the procedure, I'm her advocate. Dr. DePross is doing her suction procedure. We realize that she has a cervical pregnancy. For those of you who don't know what a cervical pregnancy is, it's an abnormal pregnancy that locates on the cervix. Not in the fallopian tubes, which is an ectopic pregnancy, which is also dangerous, but this is on the cervix, which is an extremely dangerous situation because Dr. DePross is such an amazing doctor. You realize this right away. We were able to transport her over to University Hospital. We were able to do, did she have a hysterectomy? I don't even remember, but and she was hospitalized for several days, and I remember this so well because it was such an amazing experience for me as a nurse to see what would have possibly happened to this woman if she would have continued her pregnancy. She could have died if she wouldn't have come in to terminate her pregnancy. And I always think about that when people talk about abortion, all the bad people who talk about abortion, who talk about how, all the bad things about abortion, and we saved this woman's life. So I think about that every single time I come here, and I think I am so privileged to have worked 27 years with Dr. DePross. He taught me so much, not only about medicine, but about life and about morals and about everything. And when I die, he's one of the last people that I will think about as I leave this earth because he's so wonderful. I can't tell you how much I love him. But also, I remember that it was so close to Christmas. I had my newborn 4-month-old son with me in the car with my husband, and we were driving to Des Moines to be with my parents, and everything was wonderful. And I sobbed the whole way from Iowa City to Des Moines, and Charlie kept saying, "What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Are you all right?" And I kept saying, I do such amazing work. We saved this woman's life. If she would have continued her pregnancy, she would have died. You don't get it. It's just amazing what we do. And people have to continue to do this because it is such amazing work. And I am so blessed to just be standing up here and telling you this story that I got to work with Dr. DePross. I love him. I just love him so much. Thank you.
Hello, I am Jamie Nevins. I've met many of you, and I've been around for quite a while, actually. It is amazing work, Tina. It really is. Let's see. So I started coming to the Emma Goldman Clinic probably in my mid to late teens. I had my wonderful Aunt Linda Gottlieb that worked at the front desk for almost 20 years. Amazing work. Amazing work. And then, so I volunteered while my Aunt Marilyn Cohen was the first executive director, and my Aunt Jane Katz was on the board. And so I volunteered for a while, and then they said, we need to diversify our board and get some young people. And I was a young feminist, like 18 or 19 or something, and so I got on the board for a little bit. And then I moved away and went on adventures, and I worked at a clinic in Florida. It was the first clinic that I got paid to work at. And it was great. It was amazing. And then I didn't work at a clinic for several years. And I missed it. I missed the individual stories of the women and all of the experiences that they had, and everybody. There's so many overlapping things, but every single one was different and individual and just amazing. And it just shows you, how life, how people are. They're different, but all, even in the similar experiences, that there are similar places that they're at, different and amazing and strong and, sad or joyous or, all the things that people that work in this business and, volunteer and care for other people, all the people in this room, I think we all sort of know. But it's a good reminder every single day. So then worked at the clinic in Florida for a couple years and then didn't and missed it and missed it and missed it. And I was a nanny and did all kinds of other things. And then I moved back to Iowa and took care of my grandma for a little bit. And then I was like, I'll just see what's happening over at the clinic. And so I heard they were hiring and I applied and they were like, oh, we missed you. And so here I am, and I'm almost at 5 years, and it's still amazing and wonderful every single day. So, yay, generations.
We would have these protesters that would come, across, and they'd be across the street and so on and so on. One day it was raining, and there were a whole bunch of us on the Emma Goldman side, and we look over, and I remember Dwayne Rehoboth started laughing hysterically because across the street there are two college girls, and they're in this Jeep. Yeah, it was kind of like a Jeep, SUV, I guess. And they were broken down, only they weren't really. And they're out there, and they've got jumper cables, and they're sticking them in here, and then they dance around and stick them over here, and then stick them in here and stick them in there. And this went on and on and on. And behind them is this Right to Life truck who can't get past because they're blocking the street. And of course they've got these, and it's raining, and they've got this long blonde hair, and they got those short skirts on, and dancing around with the jumper cables. And they held up the big Right to Life people for, 30 minutes or so. And then as they drove by, they waved. And they were from Planned Parenthood in Cedar Rapids. And another time, there was, demonstrators. And I looked across the street, and there was this nun over there. And we kind of were looking and we're talking about her, She didn't seem to really be with the right to life people, because they kind of look at her really strangely. And then I saw her go like this with a cigarette. And it turned out she was from the clinic. And she had fake hair on and a fake nun's outfit. When you got up close, you could tell, you know. But this was the giveaway, you know. So we had a lot of fun, though, with the protesters. I remember Gail took out a cup of coffee to one of them one time, and the woman didn't know whether to scream about, you know, you're evil incarnate or what to say. And Gail said, well, it's kind of cold. I thought maybe you'd like a cup of coffee. And then we all had a good laugh over it. But anyway, there were protesters, but, you know, the Iowa City people showed up too. So those are the only stories I remember.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Shireen Connor, and I'm on the board of directors at the Emma Goldman Clinic. I haven't been involved with the Emma Goldman Clinic very long, and compared to a lot of other beautiful people. I actually came into the Emma Goldman Clinic on accident. It was one of those emergency situations. Which I'm going to tell something really personal. I needed plan B. And I was freaking out about, you know, where was I going to get this? I couldn't go to the university because for some reason they were closed. And I was too afraid to go to the hospital because I was afraid they were going to call my parents. So I had a friend who said, well, why don't you try Emma Goldman? I was like, what is Emma Goldman? I don't even know what that is. Being from Des Moines, it wasn't something I had any clue about. So I went in, and the people I told them crying that I needed help, and they were so welcoming. They were like, no problem, here, sit down, here's tissues, we're gonna take good care of you. And it was the best feeling in the world, in the most hectic, crazy, chaotic situation I could think of at that time. Wow, there's an organization who could actually make me feel like I was a person, and that my fears they were just gone. And I think about that all the time, about how some healthcare places are just not like that. And so from that experience, I ended up going to school at the University of Iowa for social work, and ended up calling Francine and getting my internship for social work at Emma Goldman. So I have a lot of experience of being an advocate and working with the clients and getting that perspective and being able to actually help other people, which I found very rewarding. Then for about a year and a half, I went to work as a substance abuse counselor and kind of got away from Emma. And I thought, man, what am I doing? Like, I miss that experience. I miss the people that I met there, the friends that I made. And a couple months ago, I just said, why the heck not? And I applied for the board, and that's how I'm here today. And I think about how much I want to give back to the community and people who were so welcoming and helpful to me in a huge time of need, even though now that I look back, it wasn't really that crazy. But but in that time, I was freaking out, and being, you know, a freshman in college, not wanting to tell my parents that I did something wrong, it was the best experience you could have. So thank you to all of you who helped me, and I hope to give other people that experience as I continue to be on the board. So thanks.
I'm Heidi Lauritsen. I worked at the clinic from 1984 to 1985, And I've been thinking about this story, and I'm a little foggy on some of the details, and I don't know what the situation is now, but I'll tell you a snapshot of the story. It was in 1985 when we were notified that we were going to lose our malpractice insurance for our physicians. We had been using residents from the University of Iowa to do the abortion procedures, and no insurance company in the U.S. would sell malpractice insurance to an abortion clinic. So we were in big trouble, and we looked everywhere we could think to look. I remember we discussed contacting Lloyd's of London for insurance because they insure everything. We looked at offshore companies in the Caribbean. That was a no-go. And what saved us were the doctors, the staff doctors at the University of Iowa. And Chuck DePross and Susan Johnson are here tonight. And for quite a few years, we had to rely on physicians who had their own insurance. And then Bob Kretschmar, of course, was another one who came on board for us. So thanks to Susan and Chuck and anyone else, if they're here, that I don't know about.
My name is Jeanette Carter. My daughter was in college in the early 80s and called me one night and said one of her friends was pregnant, terrified, couldn't tell her parents, couldn't tell anybody, didn't know what to do. And she said, "Do you think you could call Emma Goldman and see about getting something done?" So we called, made an appointment for her. She came over, she stayed with me, and then the next day went to her appointment and then went back to school. And I, every day, not every day, but every once in a while I think, what if there wasn't an Emma Goldman? And we're so lucky that we have it. And I think maybe it's easy to forget that a lot of places don't have it. And I know that that young woman, you know, it kept her life going. And it was a remarkable thing for her. So I'm very happy to have the Emma Goldman Clinic here.
Thank you for sharing all your stories, your wonderful, inspiring reflections of the clinic with us.
Thanks for coming out tonight. Have a safe trip home.
You're watching City Channel 4. On TV, online, on demand, on Facebook, and now on the go on your mobile device.